The dense fog-covered forest stretched endlessly, hiding something ancient within. This was a place where human footsteps were rare, a terrain ruled long ago by creatures that moved in the shadows. Few dared to venture this deep into the wilderness. But today, an unusual figure had found her way there. Ella. Ella, a 12-year-old girl, had a sharp intelligence that made her seem older than she was. She wore a worn leather jacket, far too big for her slim frame, and her calm demeanor didn't match the towering woods around her. Resting for a moment on a moss-covered log after a long hike, her breath was steady. Despite her fast-beating heart, Ella wasn't afraid. She knew a secret. She was never truly alone. The forest swayed unnaturally as if it sensed something was coming. Yet, Ella stood firm. Suddenly, from the dark underbrush, two creatures emerged, both unlike anything from Earth. On her left stood a towering alien creature, grotesque with rippling muscles beneath leathery skin. Its yellow, glowing eyes locked onto Ella with an intensity that froze the air. Long, spindly fingers drummed against the ground as if it couldn't wait to attack. On her right, a massive wolf stood tall, its stormy white fur shimmering. Its glowing eyes mirrored the aliens, though this creature was different. It wasn't here to harm Ella. It was here to protect her. Both beings were part of the same alien invasion, but only the wolf was on her side. Ella's expression was unreadable as she faced the creatures, seemingly oblivious to the surreal standoff. The air crackled with tension until, without warning, the alien lunged. But it had underestimated Ella. She wasn't alone. The invasion had started quietly. No blinding lights, no flashy entrances, just a subtle shift in the world's balance. The aliens didn't launch attacks on cities. Instead, they infiltrated shadows, replacing key creatures with their mutated versions. Their goal wasn't to rule humanity. It was to consume the very life force of Earth. In places like this forest, creatures disappeared, replaced by the aliens' twisted creations. These wolves weren't hunting for food. They were preparing the way for something far worse. When Ella's village was attacked, she knew it was time to act. Her family had been taken by creatures that looked like wolves, but were far more sinister. Ella barely escaped that night. She was saved by a being hidden from human eyes for millennia, a guardian who bonded with her. The massive wolf by her side wasn't from Earth, but it wasn't aligned with the aliens either. It was a protector, loyal to something older than the stars. As the alien on her left moved with a predatory crawl, Ella raised her hand. The air grew colder as an unseen connection crackled between her and the creatures. The alien paused, sensing something unusual about this girl. Before it could react, the wolf lunged with a terrifying snarl, its massive paws crashing into the ground. The battle was swift and violent. The wolf, despite its size, moved gracefully. Its teeth gleamed as it clamped down on the alien's arm, forcing a howl of pain. Ella remained still, her face calm as chaos erupted around her. She wasn't just a bystander. Her connection to the wolf was profound. She could feel its thoughts, its rage, its purpose. The alien's face twisted in agony as the wolf's jaws tore into its flesh. It wasn't just fighting the wolf, it was fighting Ella too. Through their bond, she guided the wolf with precision. She wasn't a scared little girl lost in the woods. She was a strategist, a conduit of power. With a final crack, the alien's lifeless form hit the ground. The wolf stood over it, breathing heavily, its eyes still glowing with intensity. Blood dripped from its fangs, but the victory was clear. Ella slowly approached the fallen creature, kneeling beside its body. She touched its cold, leathery skin without triumph. This was only the beginning. "I know you're watching," she whispered, her voice calm but determined. For a moment, the trees shimmered as if reality itself had wavered. She wasn't speaking to the alien, but to the others still hiding, the ones who thought they could take Earth without resistance. "They'll come for us again." The wolf's deep voice echoed in her mind. "I know," Ella replied silently, "but we're ready." The forest grew quiet again, the alien's body a grotesque heap at Ella's feet. The wolf stood beside her, its breath steady, eyes sharp, scanning for the next threat. The darkened woods remained still, as if the forest was holding its breath. Ella knelt beside the fallen alien, her fingers tracing its strange, cold skin. It felt foreign, alien in every sense, but oddly familiar. She had seen creatures like this before, not in her village or on Earth, but in vivid dreams that began the night her family was taken. Since then, her connection with the wolf had only grown stronger, but this creature was different. "I should feel something," she muttered softly. The wolf's ear twitched at her voice, its glowing eyes turning towards her. "They're not like us." The wolf's voice echoed in her mind, deep and steady. "They take what they don't understand. They destroy what they can't consume." Ella met the wolf's gaze. Behind its glowing eyes, she saw something hidden. Sadness, maybe. No, it was more complex, the weight of something that had lived too long, fought too many battles. She wondered if the wolf felt the same numbness she did, or if it had always known the truth about this world, that it was a battleground, a series of endless conflicts. Her thoughts were interrupted by a distant rumble. The trees shuddered, and the wolf's hackles rose. Ella stood quickly, her heart pounding. She wasn't scared, but the anticipation, the uncertainty, set her nerves on edge. "They're coming," the wolf growled. "They know we're here." Ella's eyes narrowed as she stepped beside the wolf, her hand brushing its fur for reassurance. There was no time to rest, no time to figure out why this alien had ventured so far from any human settlement. Yet, she couldn't shake the feeling that this encounter was just the beginning of something much larger. Suddenly, a cold voice echoed through the forest. "Human?" The voice wasn't coming from one direction. It filled the air like a low hum. "Human, we have no quarrel with you." Ella clenched her fists. She knew that was a lie. The attack on her village, the people taken, the destruction left in their wake, it was all deliberate, methodical. She knew better than to trust them. "They want you to believe there's a way out," the wolf said calmly. "But there isn't." "I know," Ella replied, her voice colder than she expected. The terrified girl she once was no longer existed. In her place stood someone hardened by loss and survival. The voice came again, closer this time. "Surrender." Ella laughed, a sharp, unsettling sound in the eerie silence. She was standing in the middle of an ancient forest, bonded to a mythical wolf, facing an alien race bent on consuming everything she'd ever known. And they expected her to surrender? Her laughter died abruptly, her expression hardening. "You don't get it, do you?" she said, her voice steady. "You think you're the predators here? You have no idea what you've walked into." The air shifted. The overwhelming presence she had felt moments ago faltered. The aliens hesitated, confused, even afraid. They hadn't expected her to fight back. "They don't know what we are," the wolf whispered, stepping forward, muscles rippling under its fur. The ground trembled beneath them, a deep rumble echoing through the earth. Ella's heart skipped a beat. The forest seemed to come alive, roots curling through the ground like ancient tendrils. Something was awakening beneath the surface, something old, powerful. The wolf stepped back, eyes wide. "It's starting." "What's starting?" Ella asked, trying to keep her composure. "The forest's call," the wolf answered. Suddenly, the trees parted, and from the shadows emerged more figures. Dozens of them. But these weren't like the grotesque creature they had just fought. These beings were sleek, agile, glowing with a faint blue light. They moved with purpose, their eyes fixed on Ella and the wolf. But there was no malice in their gaze, only quiet understanding. "They've been waiting for you," the wolf said, lowering its head. "For us." Ella's breath caught. "What do you mean?" The wolf didn't answer. Instead, it stepped aside as one of the blue-lit creatures approached. Tall and elegant, the creature knelt before Ella, its glowing eyes meeting hers. For a brief moment, she felt connected to it. There was warmth in its gaze, a sense of recognition. "They are not here to fight," the wolf said softly. "They are here to protect." Ella's mind raced, struggling to comprehend what was happening. The aliens had twisted the world into something unrecognizable, but these glowing beings, they were different. They had been waiting in the forest, hiding until the right moment, waiting for her. The creature spoke, its voice soft but powerful. We are the guardians of this world. You are the one we've been waiting for. Ella took a step back, her heart pounding. Me? Why me? The creature tilted its head. You are bonded with the guardian wolf. Together, you will restore balance. The irony wasn't lost on her. She had once thought of herself as insignificant, and now she was being told she was part of some ancient prophecy. It would have been laughable if it wasn't so terrifying. I don't understand, she admitted, her voice barely a whisper. You don't have to understand yet, the creature said. You just have to trust. Ella bit her lip. Trust? How could she trust anything anymore? Her world had been shattered, her family taken. But when she looked at the wolf beside her, its steady presence, its unwavering loyalty, she knew she had no choice. If they were going to survive, if they were going to fight back, she had to trust. The creature rose to its feet, turning toward the forest. They will come again, and when they do, we will be ready. Ella nodded, her resolve hardening. What do we do now? The creature's eyes glowed brighter, and for the first time, a small smile touched its lips. We prepare. The air grew cold again, and a distant hum vibrated through the trees. Ella's heart raced as she turned toward the sound. They're coming, the wolf said, its voice tense. Ella smiled, though fear knotted in her stomach. Let them come. The forest became unnervingly quiet. The glowing blue beings who had appeared earlier stood in the distance, watching, waiting. Ella could feel their gaze, a silent understanding passing between them. They had come to help, but this fight, it was hers, and it always had been. Ella's grip tightened around the knife at her belt, her fingers trembling slightly. The wolf beside her watched her closely, its golden eyes unreadable. In its thoughts, Ella sensed quiet resignation. The wolf had seen many battles, fought in countless wars across time. But this one, it was different. The hum of the aliens' voices grew louder, closer, as they advanced. Their numbers were growing, but Ella didn't panic. Her mind raced, not with fear, but with clarity. For the first time, she understood everything. The aliens hadn't come to dominate or enslave humanity. Their goal was simpler, far more insidious. They wanted Earth's life force, not just the animals or the plants, but the bond that tied all of Earth's creatures to the planet itself. That was why they had tried to break the balance, taking the wolves first. Wolves weren't just predators. They were protectors, guardians of the ancient bond between Earth and its inhabitants. And if the aliens could sever that connection, they could drain the planet dry and move on to the next world. Ella's bond with the wolf wasn't an accident. It had been forged by the planet itself, a desperate attempt to preserve what little balance remained. The aliens weren't after humanity. They were after the bond. And somehow, Ella had become the key. They don't understand, Ella whispered, her voice steady. They think they can break it. The wolf's ear twitched. What do you mean? Ella's eyes darkened. The bond. It can't be broken. The wolf tilted its head slightly. You sound so sure. I am. Ella's grip on her knife tightened as the hum of the aliens grew louder. They've tried to take everything, but they didn't break the bond. The wolf growled softly. They've taken everything else, but not the bond, Ella said firmly. That's why they're coming for me. They think if they take me, they'll finally have what they need. But they're wrong. The wolf's eyes narrowed. You're certain of that? Ella nodded. I know it. The bond is too deep, too old. They can't destroy it. The realization washed over Ella, lifting the weight from her shoulders. The bond wasn't just something that could be taken or lost. It was part of the very fabric of the Earth. And that meant the aliens had already lost. They just didn't know it yet. The first alien emerged from the trees, its yellow eyes glowing menacingly. Smaller than the creature they had fought before, it moved with a quiet precision that sent a chill through the air. More aliens followed, their grotesque forms slithering through the underbrush. Ella took a deep breath, her heart steady. They're coming for me, she whispered. And when they do, they'll find out they can't win. The wolf growled, its muscles tensing for the fight. We fight together. No, Ella said softly, her voice calm. We don't need to fight. The wolf glanced at her, confusion flickering in its golden eyes. What do you mean? Ella's gaze remained fixed on the lead alien, her expression unreadable. They've already lost. They just don't know it yet. Without warning, the lead alien lunged, its twisted limbs reaching for Ella with terrifying speed. The wolf snarled, ready to pounce, but Ella didn't move. She stood perfectly still, her eyes locked on the creature. Just as the alien's claws were about to strike, something happened. The air around Ella shimmered, like the surface of a calm lake disturbed by a single drop. The alien froze midair, its yellow eyes wide with confusion. The other aliens halted as well, twitching as if they couldn't comprehend what was happening. Ella remained still, calm. She could feel it, the bond pulsing through her, through the wolf, through the very ground beneath them. The aliens had miscalculated. In trying to sever the bond, they had only strengthened it, activating something ancient, something they couldn't control. They thought they could break it, Ella whispered. But they've only made it stronger. The lead alien let out a guttural hiss, its body trembling as it struggled against the invisible force. But it was too late. The bond had reacted, drawing power from the earth, from the wolf, from Ella. The aliens had triggered the one thing they had feared, the full awakening of the bond. "You can't take it," Ella said, her voice firm. "It's not yours." The bond surged. The ground rippled, the trees swayed, and the air hummed with a strange energy. The aliens screeched and writhed as the bond rejected them, pushing them back. The wolf stood at Ella's side, its eyes glowing brightly. "It's over," the wolf growled. Ella nodded. "Yes, it is." With a sudden burst of energy, the aliens were flung backward, crashing into the trees and rocks with bone-shattering force. Their final shrieks echoed through the forest as their bodies dissolved into nothing, leaving behind only silence. Ella stood in the clearing, her breath steady. The forest was still once more, the bond quiet, its work done. The wolf padded over to her, brushing against her leg. "They're gone," the wolf said, its voice soft. Ella nodded, her eyes scanning the forest. "They can't come back. Not after this." The wolf tilted its head. "You did it." "No," Ella said quietly. "We did it." The wolf let out a soft huff, its eyes glowing warmly. "What happens now?" Ella was silent for a moment. The battle was over, the bond was safe, but she knew things would never be the same again. "We go home," she said finally. The wolf blinked in surprise. "Home?" Ella smiled. "Yeah, it's time to go home." The wolf was quiet for a moment, thoughtful, and then nodded slowly. "Home." Together, they turned and began walking through the forest, their footsteps silent on the soft earth. The bond still pulsed faintly around them, a reminder of the ancient connection that had brought them together. But there was no danger now, no threat. As they walked, Ella felt a strange sense of peace settle over her. The battle was over. The aliens were gone, and for the first time in a long time, she felt free. The wolf walked beside her, its head held high, eyes glowing softly in the dim light. They didn't speak, but they didn't need to. The bond between them was stronger than ever, unbreakable. Ella didn't know what the future held, but one thing was certain. She wasn't alone, and she never would be.